when they put it in, it would be, determined a county road or talked about. And then I've gone through the following year, through the minutes, and I haven't found anything. So, a lot of times these things happen and then the gavel just doesn't come down, or people assume it did, or. But that's where, we got all this and it just kind of led to more questions than answers. But so yeah, to answer your question, no, right now, the road that drives through Maury Schaefer's 20 acres does not have any legal easement or county road or public road status.
I guess we will see you back here on the 15th.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Thanks, Bernadette, for all the work
Yeah,
you've done to
She
this
did an
point.
extensive amount of research.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting reading.
Yeah.
And if questions arise from you or Corey, please feel free to call me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you want to put this with that packet then?
Thank you.
So we'll move on to our 11 o'clock Share Justo Montana Preservation Alliance overview of Main Street Renaissance Grant decision.
Good morning, that would be me.
Good morning.
Yes, I'm Cher. Nice to meet you all, and thank you so much to Commissioner Obert for inviting me here this morning. I am with the Montana Preservation Alliance. We are based in Helena, in Reader's Alley, in the old stone house. So if you ever went to dinner there, or remember when it was kind of a going restaurant, that's where we're based now. We've been doing outreach to communities for over 30 years to help them to do historic preservation, and in our minds it's important because it helps to preserve the heritage and the history of these communities, and also because it's a great tool for economic development. And so with that in mind, we reached out to the Steel Reese Foundation that funds projects in Montana, Idaho, and in Kentucky that affect rural communities, and especially rural communities and their vitality. And we got a nice grant to work with 4 communities in the area that is within the service zone for Montana Business Assistance Connection, which is MBAC, which is run by Brian Obert and Eric Seidensticker. And so they are our partners in the project, and in doing the identifying the communities to work with, we tried to pick at least one in each county that they have, and then we did 2 in Lewis and Clark County because we wanted to do the north and south end. So we're working with Augusta, White Sulphur Springs, East Helena, and Townsend. And we have met with a whole variety of people. Way back last spring, we met with the Townsend Rotary, we met with the Townsend Historical Society, and Ernie Forey from the BCDC. And, it was a way of kind of starting to engage people in this idea that we would then come and work with the downtown core and see what we could do to bring our talents to help revitalize some of the buildings in downtown. And we're doing that with all 4 communities. So I'd like to just give you a little bit of information about us that you can kind of look over. There's 2 things there. You just take one of each and pass on. And then I do have a lovely PowerPoint for your enjoyment that I'll step back here and show you. This project is something that we're very excited about because we do a lot of outreach with communities. We've been working also, if you're familiar with the Snowy Mountain Development Group out of Lewistown, they have 6 counties that they work with, and 4 counties that they work with. And so we have kind of developed a way of working with rural communities in particular, where we see what they already have going on, and then we try to really reinforce that and help come up with ideas for how to do it in a stronger way, and ideas for who else can help and be a partner. On our staff, we have myself, and I'm kind of a generalist in the preservation realm, so I'm really familiar with the history and the resources all around the state, and also where to go for looking for grants, how to secure those kind of funds. We have a staff architect who looks at buildings with us and talks about what it needs, what it takes to do the work needed for the properties. And then we have an architectural historian and an outreach staff. So there's 4 of us all together. And in this project, I'm going to put this on bigger. This is a little glimpse of the 4 towns we're working with. This is Augusta, White Sulphur, East Helena, Main Street Park, and of course the famous water tower of Townsend. So first, Augusta, I'm just going to show you quickly because there's a lot of similarities between these towns. This is the downtown there. It started in Gilman, and the rodeo is a big part of their heritage. The Lazy Bee, the General Merc, the store that's called the Mannix grocery store. And then these buildings that are empty, except, well, the gas station is occupied, the other 2 are empty. These are all properties that we're thinking to work with them on in the community. East Helena, this is an overview that really shows, kind of that industrial start to the community. The smelter having so much to do with the early heritage. Their downtown is, the core of it is roughly 3 blocks long. Here's what it looks like today, very similar buildings to Townsend. And then here are a couple that have been really nicely preserved, and others that, again, are vacant or really hardly used at all, right in the middle of downtown. So if we can help to turn those around, that's our goal. This is a project they'd like to work on too. So for all these communities, we actually come in and we do an inventory form on the building that on a number of historic buildings in the downtown. And each one has some, it's hard to see of course, but historical information, architectural, where it is located. Here's the photographs. If we find historic views, we have that. This is can be the foundation for a National Register nomination if a property owner would like to then take that information and develop it into a nomination so they can qualify for tax credits for historic building renovation. It also becomes a place when our architect comes and looks that he can put engineering or architectural notes. So we're creating a file like this on all the historic buildings that we look at, and gives us some good recommendations. This is our Townsend location, and of course at the end of the lake, the downtown again, very similar. I did highlight some of the historic buildings that really stand out, everything from the commercial bar and the Berg building, which is the little one right next to that nice pocket park, down to the power block and the State Bank of Townsend, which is on the National Register now, and actually long ago I helped Bill Kearns do that. It's probably been 20 years, 25 years, but it's a very wonderful building, and really a credit that the family took the time and had the interest to do that. In the heyday, when there were lots of businesses and signs everywhere, this shows a lot of energy, And I love this photograph of the Fall Fest, which of course is coming right up. So then just some anchor buildings. This is a great shot of that Berg building, and actually our architect has looked at it because there was a little interest in maybe somebody occupying the building, and it'd be possible to bring it back in such a way that it could be a real gem on the streetscape once again. And there are tax credits to help with that kind of thing, and strategies. And then the commercial bar, we were asked about that also, and there definitely could be some pretty simple things that could, you know, revive a little bit of the historic character more. And then there's the Power Townsend building, which is just beautiful still, and really an anchor in the downtown. So we were here and talked and met with Linda Huth a couple of weeks ago and took some nice pictures on a beautiful day. I just love the streetscape of Townsend, and you know, some of these classic locations and signs and everything certainly are part of what makes your town feel so nice and have such a wonderful character. And then the last one is White Sulphur Springs, base of Castle Mountains, downtown. That's their main street zone that we're looking at. Actually, the commercial area really ends right about here at Highway 89, but we're going all the way down Main Street because of some other projects that might happen down there. And these are some of the standout buildings. This one is empty. This is their old Oddfellows home. They have a depot in. Still trying to kind of develop something going on there for tourists and things. And then the interiors of some of these buildings are still so nice and intact. And so, as I said, one of the things we hope to do is try to engage our project to help with other things already ongoing. There's some interest here to do any kind of a driving heritage tour. I know there's some interest in a couple of the buildings downtown, so one of the things that we really want to do is see what people here would like to do, not us tell everybody what we think Hall should do. And so that's part of why I came today, to talk about upcoming meeting that we have for the public, to invite people to come and do that with us. And I just was going to show, this is a beautiful project that they're doing out of White Sulphur Springs, which is Barnaquil. And then they get, people come down and they have a big workshop area where they're set up, and everybody paints a barn quilt, and they're all around the county and the greater White Sulphur Springs region right now. So, and this is a tiki burn or something like that. So that's what I had prepared to show you, and we'll do something like this again when we have the community meeting. I wanted to say that, you know, for a long time we've actually been very impressed by the outreach and the work that Broadwater County has done in historic preservation. We were a partner when the funding came through to help reinforce and repair the vandalism at the silos. And I've always loved the Toston Bridge. I drive over it every time I go out this direction. I make it, and maybe people in Toston don't like, you know, traffic coming past the door, but I just think it's really beautiful. And thank you for, you know, doing that and lighting it up at Christmas time. So we hope that all the local officials can be part of this dialogue. And I've gone to the other counties now that are involved, and you know, people are pretty excited. And we've also met with the local, you know, town councils and stuff. I haven't met with them in Townsend yet. That's the one last group I have to get together with. But we have 4 meetings coming up that will be all with these different communities. And the one in Townsend, I am trying to remember what I said the date was. Let me look at my notes.
I want to say it was the 2nd.
Oh yes, October 2nd, that is right. And it will be in the afternoon. And of course it's getting colder now outside. Our hope was that we'd get some good Indian summer weather. We could actually meet in the park next to the Berg Building. But if it's chilly, then I have reserved the room at the Betsy in the back. And so we're on the calendar there, and we'll meet in there, which is a nice, beautiful theater space. So.
And what time?
I think we said 3:30 because we wanted to try and catch some good warmth in the afternoon.
Okay.
Yeah. And we'll be putting out a press release. Now we've just last Friday, we kind of set our last date for these, so now we'll issue a press release and it'll go to all the papers so we can invite everybody. Everyone here is invited. And there will be more information about it. It'll be a couple hours, and we have a big kind of scroll that our architect designed, lay out on the table, and people can write what these buildings remind them about, or stories that they know, or properties they think we should help look at. When we met with Linda, there was a building around the corner that's a little stone building that I didn't ever know about. It's kind of right perched on the alley, and she said, I'd love to have that building be one of them. So that's the kind of suggestion we're looking for. And of course, we also hope that people in the business community that are owners of the buildings that are based downtown will join too, because some of the things that can come out of this can be, ways they can work together to promote things that are happening and that kind of collaboration. So we enjoy being here in Townsend, hope that you can come that day, and Laura will probably be our ambassador to kind of connect and remind people that this is happening. I'm happy to answer any questions. You're also welcome to come to the other meetings in the other 3 towns, but we'd certainly love to see you here at the Townsend meeting.
Barb Kirscher said once in a commission meeting, and she did coin the phrase, but if you don't know where you've been, how do you know where you're going?
Yeah.
And that's what our history is. It's our foundation. It defines who we are today, and it defines where we're going in the future. So I really appreciate what you guys do, not only for Townsend, but for all the small communities around, and big communities too around the state. Preserving that heritage is essential to keeping our own heritage.
Yes, thank you, and it's so grateful to you to have been part of our partnership and talking about this with Steel Reese people and things as well. The thing I can also say is that, when working with some of these small towns, we're working a lot in Lewistown these days, and it's starting to turn a corner. All of a sudden there are 2 buildings under redevelopment, and we have a building that we are now signed with a developer who will create new apartment space in the old building that we took because no one else was gonna, and that we were asked, would we please do it? So, that kind of thing really, it can just make a big difference. Even one building in a small town like Townsend can make a huge difference, and then encourage people in neighboring buildings to do the same. I think it's a really good time for this to be happening, just because, once again, there's kind of this reawakened interest in Montana. We were listening to this news program just one day about how much development is coming in places like Seattle, and they're interviewing all these people. And at the very end, the last guy said, these are places where they're tearing down what's downtown and putting in these 4- and 5-story buildings and things. And somebody was asked, and the last statement that somebody made was, well, if it gets too overrun here in Seattle, I heard Montana's a pretty nice place. So who knows? But the most important thing in my mind is to actually help to maintain the identity of these communities also. You guys live here, and so what you want to see happen, and to have these buildings back in use for you use and your kids, that's so important. We've been working a little bit out in the valley. On the way down here, I was thinking about this project we've been doing out by Townsend, and you can't see it from the road, but there's an old stone schoolhouse set back toward the Elkhorns, and we worked with the kids at the high school, and our architect went and joined up with Clint at the shop class and taught the kids how to build the windows for the old schoolhouse. And that's part of our goal too, is to involve people, and especially younger people locally, so they have some good skills. And maybe those kids will go to work at Townsend at the spindle company, that's a wonderful Montana spindle. Or maybe they might, preservation carpenters can are in demand when there are old buildings being done, and you have to have a certain set of skills. So we expose the kids to some things that we hope down the road might be of interest to them.
And correct me if I'm wrong about those windows, they're teaching them to make them the old historic way, right?
Yes, right. They were so rotten and shot that all really that were left were just pieces of the wood that had fallen down into the inside of the building. It's just a little one-room schoolhouse, but it's stone and quite beautiful. And so they rebuilt the windows from scratch, and we had a master carpenter come over and work with our architect Dustin Kalanick and then the kids. And yeah, they rebuilt them, they glazed them, they put them all back in, in order so that they can get reinstalled. New windows reinstalled into the building. And it was a really great project. They had a good time. And they did perfect work. I mean, they were really great kids to work with. So it was a pleasure for us.
That's a great resume item for them too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and what a great teacher that they have there, Clint Watson. So, yeah. Okay, well, you probably have others to hear from, but I really thank you for your attention today and for inviting me, and I'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Cher, before you go, just a quick question. Sure. Steel Reese Foundation. Can you share a little bit about who they are and what they do?
Yeah, for sure. They're a really nice foundation, and actually, good for you guys to all know about them too. They're based they were founded and were based kind of out of Idaho, but it's a family foundation, and the family had been in Kentucky and then on the Montana-Idaho area. And so they only give in those 3 states, and they give a lot for, in recent years they've kind of narrowed their giving, so they really specifically give to rural communities and projects that will benefit rural communities. So they give for like educational things and kid programs, youth programs, and they also do support historic preservation. And we've had a relationship with them for quite a while. It would be good if you'd just like to look at their website and see the kinds of things they do. And their executive director for the Montana-Idaho area is in Missoula. Her name is Linda Tracy. And every year there's a cycle where you can apply to them. It starts with a letter of inquiry, so that's just a simple thing. And then if they're interested in your project, then they'll have you do a full application. And if they invite that, they're pretty seriously looking at you. So they don't waste your time on a full-blown application and, just knowing how much effort people put into those things. But Linda is a very open person, and she'd also, be happy to meet with anybody who came with a good project, if you were wanting to know if this was in their within their guidelines and their interest area. And we've had a couple of other projects with them in the past. They, I think this was about 10 or 12 years ago, they gave a chunk of money to the Montana History Foundation to start their preservation grants program. And that was $50,000. So it was a significant seed money, and since then the History Foundation has grown that. And I don't know if there's any projects in town that have been benefited by the History Foundation grants. They're much smaller, but they're up to $5,000, so that can be make a nice difference. And it can be for not just buildings. Their funds can also be for oral histories and research projects and collections, like museum collections, things like that. So that's also a good source. But the Steel Reese grants they range from, probably 5 up to 50, and it would be worth something looking at. And those are also the kinds of things that we talk about with the communities if they focus in on a project they'd like to do. Then how could you possibly fund it? And it's everything from rural development and the EDA to places like Steel Reese and some others that might have an interest. Trying to make that as part of what we like to do. Yeah,
Thank you.
sure. I have a copy, I'll just leave this to a copy of the grant, so if people want to read through it,
Thank you.
see what more detail about what I was describing. Maybe just one last thing, and that is that if you have suggestions of people who should be at a meeting like this, we'd love to know too, because we just think, it doesn't have to necessarily be people from right down in town. I thought it would be great to invite Graymont, somebody from there, and people that have, within the circle of Townsend's area that have some potential to, help with what's going on downtown. So we'll email maybe to Laura that list of who we've got so far, and then anybody else that you'd like to add, I'd be happy to invite, because the more we invite, just the better it will be.
I think that's excellent. Yeah,
Okay, great.
yeah,
Well,
thank
thanks
you.
again for having me.
Let's see, our next item is 12 o'clock, Winston Community Resolution to ongoing tire collection. Do we want to just recess until then? Do you have anything else?
Do you still want to speak to us on that, Nikki?
I just showed up in case there was anything you guys had to ask of me or any questions that we could answer, but we've met with Corey. My understanding is everything has been filed or is in the process of being filed, so hopefully we'll have a judge issue some sort of order or injunction stopping that, and then hopefully we'll be able to move on into the cleanup process. But we're still kind of just trying to baby step through this so that we don't miss anything. But if there's anything that I can do to answer questions, whatever, I'm happy to do that.
Thank
So
you for coming.
if the judge orders a stop order, what's the effect of that?
My understanding from Corey is that should they disregard that order, that there could be some substantial penalties, whether it's financial or maybe even potentially some more law enforcement related, where they're potentially maybe up to the point of being arrested. But again, I'm not entirely certain, because at the time of the discussion that we had with Corey, he wasn't entirely sure if he was going civil or criminal. I believe now we've understood that he has taken a civil approach, so I don't, maybe our undersheriff can
I
explain.
didn't sit in that meeting, so,
Okay, well,
I had another
The
one.
difference between a civil and a criminal,
Yeah, we don't get involved in anything civil,
So if they were to continue to dump, then you guys would not be involved in that.
well, I would say that you could probably, I don't know if there'd be, if the judge issued an order, there, even if it's a civil order, there could be a violation, which is contempt of court, which it would probably take the judge to order the sheriff to, bring them in front of him or something, a warrant or whatever. It could turn criminal, I would say.
Okay.
But, I don't know what he's exactly going after, so
Certainly.
I don't, I'm not able to speak on
Right,
that.
no, and okay, that was just kind of general questions out
Yeah.
there, so I don't mean to put you on the spot there, but, so, you know, again, I think at this point, we're kind of in the process of waiting, and then just continuing to document everything that they brought in. So, and then I believe he also was going to request that they not have contact with any of us, even if we are standing on the road that leads up to that property, because nobody has ever gone onto their property, but they've always been on that road, taking the pictures and the videos and stuff, but we've started to receive threats from them. You know, so certainly I think he's going to try to help mitigate some of that from their standpoint, so, again, until we see all the documents that are filed, I don't know that we're gonna have a lot more answers, other than at least now we have something moving forward. So we'll just have to see how that develops.
Are they still hauling in, or have they?
They hauled in as recently as Monday, the 17th. I don't know, I've kind of been in and out of town. I don't know if they've done anything since then. I've not been alerted to anything. I do know that there's been some activity up there. They've been pushing a lot of dirt, expanding the size of that tire dump. And so, you know, at this point, and I say that, I don't know if they're pushing dirt to hide what they're doing so that we cannot get good photos and videos of what it is that they do, other than just getting a photo from the road as they drive through. But they are certainly pushing an awful lot of dirt around out there. And our expectation is they haven't stopped now, why would they stop? You know, short of any much stronger deterrence.
Is Corey waiting for the judge to issue an order, or has it gone to the judge, hasn't gone to the judge?
My understanding is he was drafting the paperwork, it was going to be filed, and the issue was because there's 4 district judges that rotate through here, and the cases were assigned randomly. It could be as soon as Friday, as in last Friday, or it could be another few weeks out. I've not heard any updates. I thought I would try to walk upstairs a little bit later and see if we had any answers on who's hearing the case and when that might happen, or if there's any updates that his staff can provide to us, so. But, again, I know everything really was just kind of in front of him as of Friday. But if there's any other resources, and I don't know, I mean, because I know that Corey's busy with a lot of his felony cases, are there any other resources that we have available to assist? You know, either in terms of additional staffing, or are there other attorneys that can step in to help? Because again, I know he just appears to be pulled in so many directions. And, you know, the overwhelming theme in the emails exchanged with him is that I'm trying to work on it, but I have all these other things that keep coming up ahead of it. And we understand that, but we don't want to get pushed off just because we're not a felony case. And so if there's any other, you know, does Mako have any ability to help you guys out? Especially with the liability that you're sitting on with that dump? Is there any resources available through the Attorney General's office? You know, again, I don't know, I'm asking. But if there's anything that can be done, we would certainly appreciate any other help that could be brought in, just, you know, again, just simply because Corey is busy, and we recognize that.
The issue with outside help is MCA, Montana state law says it goes to the county attorney. So Mako is more of a resource, but they really don't have any boots on the ground type resources. They're more there for, should the county attorney have questions about what they can do, what they can't do. The Attorney General's office can be called in at the request of the county attorney. Generally, those are for felonies. So there is help there. If this is civil, I'm not sure that they come in for that. So yeah, it just becomes a matter of, you know, everybody's busy, so it's juggling. And that's just, you know, Corey's in the same boat as so many, and he's just juggling. I think the best thing we can do is make sure that this stays on the front of the radar keep up the emails, keep up the phone calls. You know, if we have to schedule another meeting to kind of reignite that fire, we certainly will do that. I was extremely gratified to see the email, I think last Thursday, because we shouldn't be pulling you guys out of work to come here again. You've provided the pictures, you've provided the testimony, you've provided everything that I think you can. So, yeah, just keep us updated, and we'll also make sure that that fire stays lit.
On a side note, the Raidersburg tire dump, I know that I read in the newspaper that Corey and Sheriff Meehan were tasked with trying to come up with some sort of solution. In one of my conversations with DEQ, they basically said that it was done, it was resolved and over with. So I'm a little confused as to exactly what's supposed to be going on with Raidersburg. Do you guys have any additional information? Or any, have you guys been made aware, according to DEQ, that they said Raidersburg was resolved, completed?
No.
As far as they were concerned, there was nothing else they were supposed to be doing.
They issued an order to that tire dump to clean it up as they can basically afford it. That, I think that's the only order that's out there. So that's why Corey and Sheriff Meehan were gonna get back together to see if there's anything else they can do, but
Well, because DEQ basically was like, there's nothing, I mean, we're done, case closed, we're out. So I thought that was rather surprising,
yeah.
coming from the standpoint that there had just been a request to try to help get that resolved.
And that'll be, you know, we haven't gotten an update, nor has the Board of Health on that one. But I do think that from our last conversation with DEQ is, they were kind of not necessarily saying it was done and cleaned up, but county, it's now your responsibility. So, we need to drill down into that and make sure that that is the correct understanding, and if it's not, get into those weeds of understanding. And I think that's the best thing we can do at this point, is make sure, again, we keep the communication going. With Raidersburg as well, we really have the spotlight on Winston, but we've got to include Raidersburg.
You know, Winston, we were lucky enough to have some people from Raidersburg approach us when they understood what was happening. And so, you know, we are hearing from them about this is what's going to happen if you don't get in front of this. And so, as a result, we are certainly committed to making sure that they're not forgotten, because it's important. I mean, it's the same situation, we have the same risks.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anything else, or we wanna just, recess until 1?
Works for me.
Okay.
Oh, before we do that, I will be gone, per MCA, we have to announce when we'll be out of the, it's either the state or the country, I'm not sure which, but, when we'll be gone, I'll be gone October 9th through the 25th.
So what is our next meeting, the 8th then?
That's a holiday, so the 15th for sure, because of the subdivision and the road issue that's coming before us.
So we'll recess until 1 o'clock then.